And it's wonderful to be here, and certainly wonderful to bring together our lovely panel today, where we have Shaheen from an analyst and a market perspective. We have Ball from a technology implementer application perspective, David from an HR human perspective. And I should simply note, for some of you, the four of us had a panel about 4 years ago talking about AI and technology, and is it taking our jobs and what's going to happen in the world. And we had a lot of interesting discussion of the roles of people in technology then. Based upon the growth in technology today and these big terms like Metaverse, Web 3.0, we decided this is a great time to re-engage on the role of people. And we are extremely honored to have joining us today Sandy Carter from Unstoppable Domains, which is taking a very strong leadership role in this world of Web 3. And we'll give Sandy some time here in a moment to share a few more of these definitions. But she's also offered, on behalf of Unstoppable Domains, for anyone who's interested, to work with you at the end of the session to actually create your own presence in a Web3 kind of environment. So you'll learn, you'll experience, you'll be challenged with some new ideas, and you'll have an opportunity after 10 o'clock to work with Sandy, potentially in creating your own environment. As we get started, just want to reflect back, as our panelists did about a week ago, to 15 years ago. 15 years ago, we did not have at our sides constantly, we were not ruled by the day with mobile phones as we have them today. The iPhone just came out 15 years ago. And I don't know about you all, but for me today, I don't go anywhere without this. And it has all of my information. It has the way I run my life in it. Thinking back, another 15 years back, 30 years ago, for those of us in the workplace then, there was not a World Wide Web. There was not the ability to bring together people from around the world, to share things streamlessly and seamlessly through our systems. We were still using pen and paper and writing checks and storing prescription receipts in our folders and all of the things that we did in a completely physical, non-virtual, non-digital world. So in 30 years, we've come a long way. And there's been two major paradigm shifts, I believe, that have driven that. The introduction of the concept of the web sitting on top of the internet and all of the applications that developed on top of that in Web 1, where we were just doing basic tasks, Web 2, when we're doing social media, then adding to that the iPhone, and where that has taken us with mobile technology. A lot has shifted in every part of our lives, across all industries, all geos. I would suggest that the technologies that you're going to hear a little bit about today, Web3, Metaverse, NFTs, creating DAOs, decentralized organizations, these are even bigger paradigm shifts than what we've seen from the web and the idea of a mobile phone with apps. That is what leads us to what we consider Life 3.0. How do we get ready to really participate in, benefit from, grow from, collaborate, think differently in this new paradigm that we're just embarking on today? Now, both Yvonne and I have used a lot of these terms that some people may be quite familiar with, some may be scratching their head. So I want to turn over first to Sandy, who works in this stuff every day, and ask her to share her screen, share some taxonomy with us for a couple of minutes, and then we'll jump into more of an introduction of everyone on the panel. The floor is yours.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And it's really an honor to be here. I love I love your club, so I love everything you guys are doing. What I wanted to do was to complement what Jennifer just talked about. But for me, I'm a visual learner, so it's very helpful for me to kind of see it all in one place. If you're a technologist, I apologize. So this is not an architecture. This is what I would call a marketecture view. So I first want to take you through the two sides. On one side of the two-sided marketplace is this creator economy. We're seeing that creator economy grow today with things like NFT marketplaces, music, and other types of things. Yesterday, I was on the phone with a real estate venture that's selling real estate in the metaverse. So on one side, we've got this creator economy. And on the other side, we've got these digital networks that are consuming all of the artifacts and assets from a Web3 metaverse world. So in the middle is how I think about all these terms that Jennifer just so wonderfully walked us through, how they all fit together. Because a lot of times I'll hear people go, okay, metaverse or Web3 or blockchain or a DAO. And for me, they all fit together very nicely. At the bottom, you'll see the blockchain or a trusted network, as you'll hear from some of my colleagues. I believe that blockchain is the backbone, is kind of the core technology for Metaverse and Web3. It provides a trusted and a private and a secure exchange. This is what actually got me interested in Web3 was the technology of blockchain. Sitting on top of the blockchain is Web3. And Web3 leverages the blockchain for decentralization. And it brings to the equation a lot of self-sovereignty around identity and data. The difference between Web 2 and Web 3 is ownership. Who owns the data? In Web 2, it's owned by companies and governments. In Web 3, it's owned by you as the individual. The next layer up are DAOs. And I was telling the group when Jennifer had us together that I think that I could have redrawn this to where DAOs were just in the center. They're becoming so important, decentralized autonomous organizations. They provide the governance model that all of these things are leveraging and using. In fact, many Web3 companies today are DAOs, not companies that have shareholders in them. Typically, they leverage technology like artificial intelligence to drive some of the governance models that they use. And then here comes in our metaverse. We've heard lots of talk about metaverse since Facebook announced Meta. And the metaverse is just a digital experience with you as an avatar, and you will live and eat and work and sing and do everything in the metaverse. It needs technology from Web 2 like AR and VR and IoT sensory, but it is built on top of the technologies like Web 3 and blockchain. And then the top layer for me, if I was going to start my own new company right now, this is where I would focus, is on the interfaces that need to be much more intuitive. Because as you'll see, getting into Web3, buying crypto, getting a digital identity, it's a little hard today. Even the metaverse, I was teasing, I did a session in the metaverse and I had 3 people in the audience who were sitting on the roof the whole time because they couldn't figure out how to get their avatar down. So this is how I view it, how I like to think about these things fitting together. And this is kind of my visual learning. Jennifer, I'll pass it back to you.
Perfect. Thank you. Great to have those terms and clarifications to get us started. And I love the recognition that Web 2 was all about having an organization that owned data, that provides information, that provides a service. Web 3 is all about each of us as individuals owning our experience and driving our own experience. So as I mentioned, we have a lot of different perspectives from the market view and what's happening in technologies in the market from Shaheen, and then getting more into technology ball, and then also the very important human aspect from David. So I'm going to give a moment to go around our panel and have each of them not only give short summary of their background and perspective, but I would love to hear from each of you, and then we'll also include Sandy, each of you, what do you see our future looking like? Let's think back out, forward. Maybe it's not 30 years, but let's think ahead just 13 years. In 2035, we will be aptly using some of these new technologies. We may be working in metaverses. We may not have jobs or clients. We may be in DAOs. So let's start with Shaheen of who you are and what you see 2035 looking like from your analyst perspective.
Certainly. Honored to be here. Thank you for having me. I run a little boutique consulting firm called OrionX.net. We look at the impact of technology on engagements. Those engagements manifest themselves in marketing because that's customer and market engagement, and also policies and how technology increasingly is a geopolitical topic that cannot be ignored at the global level. It's a great question to really ask, what does 2035 look like? I think that's a really great question for all of you to ask, and then walk your way back into what that means today. One question that comes out of that is that how come we have so many big megatrends suddenly? Like 30 years ago, we didn't have, but now between IoT and 5G and AI and HPC and quantum computing and robotics and biotech and cryptocurrencies and on, what's going on? Why is it that we have so much going on at the same time? And I think one answer that we submit is that things are becoming more computable. As Sandy showed, trust is computable. Intelligence is becoming computable. If you keep going, there will be other aspects of what traditionally was a human quality that was intractable are now becoming computable. They're not there yet. They're still kind of struggling to kind of take form. It's not so easy. They require this, that, and the other before they happen. But the handwriting seems to be on the wall. And I think that that has led to what I see as a hunger in a global way about discussing these things. When you talk to your friends around the world, these topics aren't uncommon. People are talking about this. So we are definitely in a phase shift. And really what that means is really, as Sandy mentioned, is a blend of physical and digital. There is a blend of atoms and bits, as people say in the parlance. It is the creation of a data supply chain that complements a physical supply chain. All of this towards a data economy that is information centric as well as thing centric. So that's really how I see the future panning out. The opportunities are immense, but the potential for disruption is also immense. And if we lose sight of what we are as human beings, and if we lose sight of how all of this really at the end of the day needs to be at the service of humanity, I think we could have a really smooth transition to it if we get our act together as a society, or we could really be in a world of hurt as we struggle to get to the next phase.
Excellent. So our future 2035 will have a blend of technology and people, real and virtual. Well, you work in a very day-to-day application of technology solving business and company problems. What do you see as 2035, as well as a bit more of who you are?
Absolutely. Thank you, Jennifer. And I'm very happy to be on this panel, a great panel of phenomenal people here. So when I look into Web 3.0 and when I look back in the history, what Web 2.0 really did was transformed. We interact with each other as humans, and we interact with all different areas in our life. So COVID-19 was the first test of what Web 2.0 did for us. If we go back in 1919, that pandemic really stopped the global economy in a way. It stopped people from doing business. In 2019, 2020, 2021, Web 2.0 was the reason why the global economy didn't come to a complete halt. It could continue, and that the reason was Web 2.0. I see Web 3.0 even accelerating that to the next level, changing the way we humans are going to interact with each other, scaling our behaviors, changing our work completely. And in a way where we are completely democratizing the content we create or the information, the value we generate. So as Sandy was saying, as Sandy started with that slide where the content generator would own their content and not a centralized organization would own, I would take that to the next level and would say it's not only the content generator, but people would start using Web 3.0 to own every aspect of their life, their not only ideas, but every physical, non-physical ideas, code, patents, everything would eventually start be part of a blockchain. Or a blockchain, I would say, is kind of a old TCP/IP. If I may give an example, TCP/IP was the protocol which won the war of protocols. So blockchain is that particular protocol which is winning the war across all different ideas around there. So, and it may further evolve into something which will help us digitize all our assets and then democratize all of these without a control of a government. So that is a tectonic shift which is happening in a way where humans are trying to evolve themselves and getting everything digitized in a way where we can create value of everything what we have at a global scale and not restricted to country and boundaries. And I see that changing the way we today see the world in next 10 years. And that will have
Very
immense, I'm sorry, that will have immense pressure on policies and governments in coming years, for sure.
Very, very interesting, and kind of keeping to that theme of instead of moving technology to us, we're moving into technology.
Yeah.
Digitizing our assets and ways of doing business. Sandy, why don't you jump in of what you see the future in 2035 looking like?
So if I think about 2035, the first thing that I think about is around digital identity. And I see people managing their own data. So for example, I just moved from one city to another, and I was trying to transfer my information from a couple of my doctors. And I didn't know this, a lot of the medical professionals wouldn't give me my own data. So I imagine a world in 2025 where I have my healthcare data, I have my education data, I have my shopping history data, I have my finances, everything that I manage. Perhaps I keep that in an appliance in my house, and I'm able to comprehend and gather that data, share that data with people that I want to share it with, not others. Compensated for my data as I share it out. So for instance, I just bought a new house. Maybe Wayfair wants to give me a $1,500 coupon because I share with them that I just bought a new house, for example. So I see a place where data is actually managed by the person. People don't have to be tech savvy because we have a nice way to manage the security of all that data and be able to share that data, but be in a very protected space. The second thing I see about 2035 is that universities have moved to the metaverse. Teaching and learning is experiential. So I'm a teacher and I'm teaching one day on Mars. The next day I'm at the London Bridge. I'm transporting my students to have that, not just book learning or smart learning, but an experiential learning about what could be and how it could look in the future. And then the third thing, if you're a technologist, I imagine a world in 2035 where there are standards and scalability and accessibility of all the technologies that make Web3 what it is today around, blockchain and toolkits. I think all of those things will be easy and accessible to everyone. I'm thinking no code for a blockchain deployment and not high prices as well. So that would kind of be my 3 vision for 2035.
Wow, Sounds a bit like utopia that we can be anywhere we want to be. We just have all of our data. We can exchange. Everybody is building trust across the blockchain. Life is good in that world. It sounds.
Yeah. Obviously there are downsides to it. You know, Jennifer, I'm concerned even right now. 1 in 4 college students today spend 40% of their time in a metaverse or a game. This is why I predict that college will be held in the metaverse. It's just too exciting. I do worry about, you know, will people be outside enough? Will they get their vitamin D from the sunshine? You know, will a real world experience be that much better with the wind in your face? I was just down at South by Southwest, and one of the metaverse companies took me into their metaverse, and they now have sound coming in and smells. Like I could smell things, which is a, you know, a great recollection. My seat moved almost like a 3D movie theater. And so they were making it very real. But I do worry about, especially our children growing up in this world with 25% of them already spending 40% of their time in the metaverse. How will those real world interactions occur? You know, even look at us after 2 years of being locked away in COVID, we kind of don't even know how to act around real people anymore. So I do have concerns about it. So I don't think it's perfect, but I do think it's coming.
Wow. David, I know you have perspective on this topic, especially the atoms and the bits will work together and a utopia of everything online.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. So I have spent most of my career supporting businesses on the people strategy and the people side. Without going into actual chronology, my first job, I had to justify why I needed email. So that kind of tells you where I started my career. To me, you know, and Sandy, you've touched on a lot of it. There's multiple levels to everything. So let me take it from the perspective of an employer. So today, as many of you know, if you've been a hiring manager, the hiring process is cumbersome, it's frustrating, it's full of bias, and your chances of selecting the top person are not really where they should be statistically. From an employee perspective, your ability to, in a very short amount of time, get across to a hiring manager why you should be the person that they hire can be hit or miss. I mean, you could have a bad internet connection. You could have just had a really bad meeting just before that and not be at your best. And so when you look at the success of the talent acquisition process and the immense impact that that has on an organization, there was a great article in the Harvard Business Review a while back that said, you know, the difference between A players and even B players. You know, A players are generating a significant amount of the innovation in your organization. They're the ones who are providing a high level of customer success. Your B and C players are just kind of following along. So if you can't select effectively and you make a bad hire, that can have severe implications, especially if you're a small company. And for me, when we look at you know, this Enterprise 3.0, or not Enterprise 3.0, but Life 3.0 or Internet 3.0, it's really about taking data from this kind of amorphous space outside of the person, and as Sandy mentioned, bringing that into where the person has control over that data. And so the question then comes up, well, how do you police that? And I think in the end, you know, either you can do it or you can't. And so your performance will indicate whether you're you know, the person who you create in your avatar. But for me, being a data-driven person, so I co-authored a book with a colleague on people analytics. People make decisions today on just really, really sketchy information. They liked the way the person dressed. They said a funny joke in the interview. They went to the same university they did. None of those have any correlation to success on the job. But when we get to a point where that data is readily available to us, we don't have to go search for it. It's actually presented to us before that person even shows up for the interview. Then we start to ask really intelligent questions around what that person has done and therefore predict what they can do. So for me, the whole metaverse it takes away this really challenging process of trying to find information on people and wasting literally hours digging up data, and be able to convert that to productive time around effectively selecting the best people for the organization. The challenge, and Sandy mentioned it, is, you know, we have a digital divide that exists today. We have the haves and the have-nots. This has the potential to drive that spread even farther. And that's something I think we really have to be thinking about, is how do we engage those people who typically wouldn't have the access in a way that allows them to play at the same level as everyone else.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So I still see this nice vision of in 2035, thanks to all of this technology, we have the data we want, when we want it, we can be a lot more efficient, a lot more effective. I'm wondering from your view, Shaheen, with the research that you guys do, where do you see people and data and technology? Will the
Right.
technology take
Yeah.
over and we'll just simply be kind of relegated watching it? Or what's our role as people?
Yeah, I think it's time to talk about the bad stuff, not just the good stuff. So I think that fundamentally you can think of the industrialization that happened a couple of hundred years ago as replacing human muscle. And what we are observing now is a replacement of human brain and decision making. So that also fundamentally means that machines are competing with humans in ways that we are not familiar with. For example, we don't really harbor any fantasies that we're going to be faster than an airplane. We don't even compete. We don't even have that illusion. Mm-hmm. But we still have illusion that we are smarter, more this, more that than machines. And I think we are starting into a phase where we should abandon that as well, that humanity cannot define itself and prove its value simply because it does something better than machines. There are things that we continue to do better than machines, but we have to start planning for a day when there is nothing that we can do better than a machine. And certainly, okay, maybe you got a, athlete that is the best. Maybe you've got a filmmaker that is the best, and we can think of those examples. But the average person is not going to be a better driver, not going to be a better this, better that, and that flood is going to keep rising. So to me, the human value needs to be because we are human. It should be enough that we are human. So the fact that if we grok that, I think we will be really immensely better off. And that has ripple effects across our cultural values and social values about how people must demonstrate value. And I think that right now, for example, we are each on our laptops. So the laptop is an extension of us. It's augmented us. Mm-hmm. It's allowing us to do something that we couldn't do by ourselves. And I think that is going to be the norm for a very long time, where AI is not going to replace humans, but humans who can use AI will replace other humans. Yeah. And that will be the kind of competitive situation that will be in a while. But back to the kind of bad stuff is that the good news is that computers are going to do what we used to do. The bad news is that some of that stuff we didn't want to do, and some of that stuff we did want to do. And they're going to replace stuff that, hey, I wanted in on that. It's like, unsolicited help when you're in the kitchen and somebody comes in and does things, just stay out. It's better help that way. So that's one problem. The other problem is weaponized information. That's information that is either wrong information. Imagine, not right now, we're having in a particularly tumultuous period in human history with all the wars that are going on, and cyber warfare is in the news. And if you can spoof some missile so it goes to the wrong direction, if you can spoof a plane so it cannot find the ship it was going to land on, those are all examples of wrong data or weaponized information. But that weaponized information is directed at human beings too, and we're just humans. We haven't quite learned how to defend ourselves against information bullets. And information bullets can kill, just like normal bullets do. And we have to really learn how to do that. And then the other thing we have to learn is that while all of that is happening, there are there's a big part of the market that is pursuing all these ideals, but in the process of pursuing them, they enable the bad guys to do the bad things. And we have to really guard against that, and that's really hard to do as well.
Yep.
So it sounds like we should not focus so much on being the experts on things or being really good at doing one thing, but being able to intuit, understand a broad range, make decisions based on bigger views, possibly collaborate with others and how we can best leverage the technology that is doing things that is possibly shooting the bullets at us, how can we work with it as opposed to against it? And how can we leverage?
Right. I mean, this is what singularity and Darwinian mistakes, those kind of notions come about, is that are we in fact enabling our own demise? But this is also an opportunity for a rediscovery of humanity. And I think, as you know, and you know, David, you would know more intimately than I, the importance of that is that, you know, at the end of the day, we're doing this for the service of humanity. So if you replace all humans with robots, now what? What does world look like then, right?
Val, what are you seeing in some of your clients as you're implementing some of these technologies? How are people balancing technology versus humanity?
So that's a very good question. Humanity and technology have always been a big part of discussions when we talk to leaders and try to understand the effects of the change technology is going to bring. And as Shaheen was pointed out, it right, we are trying to enable humans to be better, but eventually it is going to replace what humans are trying to do, and it will be comfortable at times, and it will be seriously uncomfortable at times. But the matter of the fact is, it's a Cambrian explosion which is going on right now, right? So there are so many things which are happening in technology, in the way we are trying to evolve. So unless it stabilizes and unless we make sense of the change, it's very hard to precisely predict that are machines going to completely replace what we do in every aspect, or are going to completely overpower it, or they going to extend our daily life. So it's a very very difficult today to sit and say, okay, in 2035, 45, we are going to see a complete metaverse where we will be living in a virtual world, not getting out of our houses and doing all the transactions using blockchain, living our assets digitally. That's a very utopian and dystopian dream, in my opinion. So what our customers are looking for are what are the actual ground real implementations of these technologies which they can scale. So when we talk to our customers and look at blockchain, we try to understand how a blockchain solves supply chain problems and take that supply chain solution to next level to digitize their assets in a way which they can scale their operations to keep a trusted network within their ecosystem. Take Metaverse to build design systems. So any manufacturing, our manufacturing customers work with us to use AR and VR with AI to design, to build designs using the VR glasses, help them then digitize them into a blockchain so they can kind of protect their IP within their ecosystem. So there are various commercial use cases of Web 3.0 we are right now looking into. And then there are commercial, which are like consumer use cases as well. So consumer use cases are going to be like Facebook's, Twitter's of the world, which are going to change the larger ecosystem. But I think a lot of enterprise use cases or commercial use cases where we work with enterprises to use Web 3.0 are slowly changing things from the perspective of people working in companies. Now, if you remember, the first thing which accelerated growth of computing was you had a desktop computer in your office, and then you bought your desktop computer at your home, right? So what we see is this change of Web 3.0 would eventually be, taking its more the right kind of shape, with enterprises adopting it and stabilizing it with use cases which can make the right kind of implementations and can be stabilize this Cambrian explosion. And once these use cases are identified, can be scaled and properly implemented, then the consumer will start utilizing this. Now, it has happened both ways. So Facebook first started as a consumer company and then is coming to enterprise. But most of the technologies have started with the enterprise and then being a consumer. So there are use cases from both sides. I won't say there is only one way street. But what we are right now seeing, there are many use cases of blockchain, metaverse in the enterprise space, which are slowly getting into the consumer market.
Excellent. So some very specific examples there of using AR, virtual reality, AI, building a metaverse for design of manufacturing, leveraging blockchain to solve some supply chain issues, and as well as the consumer growth.
Yeah.
Sandy, what are you seeing as you work with people to create their own domains and take steps into this world? How are people actually using the Web3 type of technologies today?
I would say that most people's first jump into Web3 is setting up their wallet for crypto usage. It's not an easy task, but typically that's the first foray into the Web3 world. And that is the biggest and the best use case today, crypto for blockchain. So that's kind of how people enter into the space. Typically then they'll get a domain, which enables them not to type in this horrible 16 character letters and numbers that now and leverages their wallet address, but they'll use a domain like sandy.x or sandy.crypto in order then to interact with everything that's going on in Web3. I would say the prime things that people are doing today, the most glitzy and glamorous is the NFT and NFT collections that are out there today. We probably all watched Other Side and the Apes as they tried to mint that was just this past weekend and had some problems and issues with the scalability of the blockchain and the smart contract that they wrote. So I think a lot of people are now trying to get into the NFT space, looking at art, buying art. Interesting factoid though, only about 8% of the NFT art that's out there today is actually purchased. So there's a huge gap between supply and demand. I would say other big use cases that we're seeing today are Web2 brands trying to jump in with a Web3 colleague to make themselves cool. We've seen this with Nike. Nike actually went pretty far in doing an acquisition of a company that provided them with virtual shoes that were designed for the metaverse. But we're also seeing it with luxury brands like Louis Vuitton, who developed a game in the metaverse, or Decentraland just hosted an entire fashion show with all of the who's who that are out there today. But for the common person using DeFi applications, decentralized finance like Cook Finance to kind of set things up, or Alta Finance trying to manage your realty is really interesting. I would say if I were advising someone, how would you start out with Web3? I would say, get your wallet, get your domain, and then go and play, not giving financial advice. So maybe take $100 or $500, go and pay something in crypto. In Las Vegas now, you can actually go to a store in the Strip and you can actually pay with crypto. Maybe look at doing a smart contract for your SLA, or using a small DAO to make decisions and see some of the challenges that are there, or creating an NFT for a ticket for your next conference, present in the metaverse, or build a headquarters in Decentraland, or build a game in Sandbox. Those are some of the ways that I tell people to get started in the B2C and B2C and B2B worlds.
Excellent. Lots of things to take in, ponder, and Google. So coming back to you, David, as you've reflected on all of these ideas, any reflections that come in our final official question here of people and technology, where's the winners?
Yeah, I think that if anything, the last 2 years has taught us that we have to redefine what it means to go to work, and also redefine what it means to be an employee. The old paradigms just don't work anymore. And so, in the world of work and really the world of people, it is about access to information. Many organizations have struggled with this idea of bias for a number of years. It's really come to the forefront in the last probably 2 to 3 years. And bias at its core sense is lack of information. People make decisions, without a lot of detail, and they make really important decisions about who gets promoted, about who gets hired, about who gets terminated, based off of really, oftentimes very thin information. So having that access to information frees people up to make more intelligent decisions, or at least you hope that it would. A couple of our panelists have really spoken to, I think, what could be the danger zone around access to information that you don't intend somebody else to have. We've all gotten those ads when we've searched for something, and it's like, wow, how did that ad come up? Well, it came up because it's watching what you're doing. We had a long discussion about having an Alexa device in our house, and I finally told my wife, look, everybody's listening to you already anyway, and unless they really have a need to know, I wouldn't worry too much about it. But as we get more into this democratization of information and the access to information, I think we have to think more about that. How do we protect ourselves from bad information that's out there, both about us, but about people we're trying to interact with? And that will be the challenge. And the question will be, who will the providing the information to do that? They might have a positive place. Have to get smarter about how we both use that information and utilize it. And I think that will be one of the big challenges as we move into this whole space of access to readily access to information.
And the importance of data has come up in a lot of different ways. And how do we really value? How do we understand the data that we have? How do we put a price tag on it to possibly offer to actively sell that data to the right people across the blockchain? Doing that, of course, from our wallet with our crypto in it via our domain, right, Sandy? I just want to give an opportunity for our participants. I'm not seeing, and Yvonne, you may be seeing, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, but I want to recognize if there are questions from our participants, we could take 5 minutes here and address a few of those.
While we wait, I wanted to say that, as David was saying, the balance between transparency that digitization offers, and the flip side of that is surveillance that it also offers. And in some ways, it has commoditized surveillance. It has lowered the cost of surveillance for governments and organizations that otherwise could not have afforded to do that. So that is a non-trivial issue as well. And I think that especially in the Western world, where we have the ideals of openness and privacy and individual freedoms, that can have an impact on the policies that we need. And that really is a good segue into the lack of set policies, is that we don't have a legal framework on when something is okay and when something isn't okay. You can't have a legal framework if you don't have an ethical framework. You can't have that if you don't have a deep understanding of the implications of what you're doing. A decentralized autonomous organization is autonomous, and it can morph itself into something undesirable, and that has already happened when AI starts having some really bad language because it just goes there because it's programmed unwittingly to do that. And how do we stop these things that are autonomous? So there are so many different challenges that remain to be done, but probably the biggest one in my mind really is a lack of a political legal framework and a deeper understanding with policymakers to do the right thing on behalf of society.
Are there organizations or entities or bodies working towards that?
Yes, there have been. There have been several institutes that have been created in universities and other places, relatively well funded, to go pursue the ethics of AI, to understand, as David was saying, the meaning of the changing nature of work and what does that mean to job as a society. A lot of our employment laws are still derivatives of a factory setting
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
not really quite in tune with a multi-gig, et cetera, that we are observing right now. There's still rules like you have to go post this particular notice in a common area. Well, there is no common area where people are scattered around the world, right?
Mhm.
So those things really need work to be done, but really learning enough to know what to do and understanding what to care about, when to care about what, and then what to do
Mhm.
about it is really the most important thing for individuals as well as for companies. So try to find out, and I don't know how you're going to do it, but this is a service that you can get from industry analyst community. I know we offer it, others do too, but you need to know enough to know whether you should care. And then you need to know
Mhm.
enough to know that if you should care, what should I do about it? Individually as well as a company.
Mhm. So I think an important data for all of us is we can't stick our head in the sand. This is
No, right.
happening, and it's happening at
Yeah.
a very fast pace, and it
Yeah.
will be in some way, shape, or form a new paradigm of life 3.0.
Yes.
So now,
Exactly. It's
final
basically like,
question.
1800, late 1800s, and the steam engine just got invented.
Yeah.
What does 1950 look like?
Yeah,
Those who got that right were on the right side of history and did well.
Absolutely.
absolutely. Well, I think we all want to be on that right side of history and celebrate together in 2035. And I know that in August, we are anticipating to have an in-person discussion to go even deeper on some of these topics. But
Yep.
from now until August, and then out to 2035, I would love to just hear from each of our panelists, and maybe I'll start with Bal, and then come back to Shaheen, then David, then Sandy. From each of your viewpoints, kind of a lightning closing round, what should people do, actively do, when they leave this session today? What should we start doing to be ready for that 2035 Life 3.0? Tactical and specific. Ball.
So one very important aspect to think about Life 3.0 is to change the way we operate and think about our lives. In a way, we are trying to do that. So as David and Shaheen both try to cover, we are still in that industrial revolution era where we are still thinking our job is to show up to 9 to 5 and then get a factory worker kind of a mentality, right? So Life 3.0, with all the aspects of owning your data, working in a metaverse, as well as creating your value and owning your value, is going to change how your life will operate. So one very important aspect is to try and understand what is valuable for you, and slowly start to learn and adapt yourself, retrain, retool yourself in next couple of years. What can be more valuable in your industry, in your expertise in next 5 years, which you can store digitally and use that for rest of your life, because things are
Yeah.
going to change and you cannot stop them from
Yeah.
evolving.
So recognize it's happening. Think of what is of value, where your data is, and how you can leverage that.
Yeah.
Excellent. Shaheen, closing comment of what people can do to prepare.
Well, I'll just follow with the word change that Bal mentioned. And my view is that change is best when it's your own idea. When it is your own idea, you're a change agent, you have passion around it. When it's enforced on you, it feels not very good. So really, the corollary is that get busy making it your idea. And when change is unexpected and unpleasant, that's like the worst. But when it is expected and pleasant, it can in fact be a gift. So turn that into a gift. And that means that you need to get engaged. You need to know enough to know what to do. Get educated. Don't be afraid of it. Pull up your sleeves and say that I'm going to go define what my future is going to look like. And I'm going to take advantage of the technologies that allow me to do this, that, and I'm going to avoid the technologies that are threatening to me, like this and that. Avoid fake news, don't fall, resist temptation to retweet nonsense, don't curate your clicks and your attention, and really try to build the value, as Paul mentioned, with the digital component added to what you already are superb at, which is being you. So value yourself.
Jump in and embrace. I'm actually going to jump to you, Sandy, because I think you are going to make an offer here to people that are interested in how they can jump in on the technology, and then we'll come back to David.
Okay, great. Yeah. I mean, the thing that I would say is that we are in the very early stages of Web3. So you're not behind if you're just starting. In fact, because Jennifer and your club here has this topic, you are actually ahead. I do believe that this is real today. It's not perfect, but it is real. I do believe it's going to disrupt most companies and markets. And I do know that today it's creating a gazillion opportunities. We had a 61% increase in the number of developers who came into Web3, mostly from the Web2 world. So what do you need to do? So first, know that you're not behind the curve. Know that you're at the beginning of the curve. So get involved, help shape the future. Now is the time to do that. Especially, I will call out, if you are a woman or diverse group, we need more diverse voices into the conversation. 2, take a look at how things will change. Functional areas will change. For example, the way you market will change, because now you're not buying data from Facebook. Now you've got to entice, Jennifer and Joanne and John to give up their data. It's a whole different ball game. So go ahead and start thinking about that mental model change that you have to go through. New jobs that will come available. I was just showing my daughters just last night, there are now jobs in the metaverse that you can take. You can be a tour guide. My kids are perfect age to be tour guides in the metaverse. There are now security groups in the metaverse. There are artists in the, there's so many new things. So go ahead and dive into it. Go in with an open mind and see what's the art of the possible. And then the third thing I would say, very simply, get a crypto wallet, get a domain. We're going to do a session, a 30-minute session. I think that the ACG will set up a 30-minute session where, if you're interested, I will give you a free domain, $100 free domain. I will walk you through a concierge program of how to get that set up, how to set up your wallet. No question will be too silly. It'll just be, what happens in that group stays in that group. And we'll go ahead and get you started and going on that as well.
Perfect. Thank you very, very much.
And can I just interrupt that really quickly? I know Sandy's time is so valuable, so here's what I propose. Let's all, those of you who are interested in taking advantage of that offer, please email me and we will find a time with Sandy for that 30-minute session as a group to make that happen. And thank you so much, Sandy. Great offer.
Yeah. Perfect. David, what would you suggest we humans, valuable data-driven humans, do in the next months coming up?
So I would say your personal brand is never more important than it is right now. The days of being able to hand over a piece of paper called a resume and control who saw that are gone. Your information is out there and you need to know what's out there, because frankly, there's some probably really positive information and there's some probably things you wouldn't want other people to see that got out there through some other channel. So thinking about how you want to show up in this new world is really important, and it's never too early to start doing that. So I would encourage you to go explore what is your brand that's out there and what do you want that brand to be. And just like if you were a product, think about how you want to present that as positively as you can.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Well, this has been a phenomenally interesting and enlightening discussion. I think there is a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity to learn. And I would suggest a lot of opportunity for us all to collaborate, because there isn't going to be one right answer, one set of steps to moving forward. It's all about discussing and learning from each other as part of this ecosystem of moving into life 3.0, a new world.
Absolutely.
Yvonne, I come
Well said.
back to you for any final comments, and if there are any questions in the chat, which I'm not able to see at the moment, I am open to staying on for a bit, and I believe our panelists, Bal, Shaheen, and David are as well.
I have nothing to add other than this has been a delightful discussion, and I've learned a lot. You know, there's never a time where I think, oh, now I know it all, what's going on. So much to learn, and we're just in the beginning stages of all of this. So the event in August will definitely have some topics coming up that we haven't even dreamed of now. So, I thank all of you for the very interesting discussion, and hope to see you again soon. If anybody has questions, please feel free to ask them. And if you are interested in that offer from Sandy, email me or reply to the invitation. Any way to contact us, please reach out. And other than that, I'll hand it back to you if there are any questions.
And by August, I hope all of us will have our digital wallets and NFTs.
And I do recommend Sandy's session. I have gone through that with another group, and it's highly insightful to actually sit down and do it.
Absolutely. Okay.
All right.
Excellent.
Well, I guess that's it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Perfect.
I have
Thank
one
you so
question.
much.
Sure.
Yeah.
Are you going to post this on YouTube later?
Yes, Jennifer, can you stop the recording? I can't. You need to do that on your end.
Yes.
Yes, so we are